Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, as I like to point out each and every day. It expands our base. It is a Monday morning, and this is a fascinating political week. So let's talk about some of the issues which we face. First of all, the question of retribution. Donald Trump is now on a campaign of retribution. Many of his supporters denied that he would, in fact, do this if he won a second term. But that's exactly what he's doing. He has an enemies list. James Comey has been indicted, and there is talk that shortly John Bolton, the former national security advisor to the president, will also be indicted. And there is talk of Adam Schiff, the senator from California, also being indicted. There are innumerable debates and discussions going on today about whether the Justice Department is acting independently or whether it's doing the White House bidding. This is a serious matter because the whole point of a judiciary and the whole point of a situation where you have a White House ordering the indictment of certain individuals violates the very essence of separation of powers. One of the things which I am deeply concerned about is that we no longer have an independent Department of Justice. We have a Department of Justice which is, in fact, an extension of the White House. And there is a campaign of retribution conducted by the White House against individuals. Do you understand the power of the President of the United States? It is considerable. And let me continue this theme, if you will, by drawing an analogy between two cities, Memphis, Tennessee, and Portland, Oregon. The President of the United States is now suggesting, and in fact is sending, federal troops, National Guard, to both the state of Tennessee and the state of Oregon. There is something terribly wrong here. I am going to suggest to you, in the strongest possible terms, that what the president is doing is an abuse of power. I went back to look up what the abuse of power sense is. It is when a president exceeds his authority. Make no mistake, and I'm going to focus in on Oregon because Portland is a great city and I've spent a lot of time in Portland. Let's talk about the fact that the president is suggesting that Portland is a lawless city, that it has been taken over by the left wing. I mean, you go on and on and on with his statements, and you understand that this is truly an infringement on states' rights. More than an infringement on states' rights, is it an infringement on the very essence of what we are supposed to use the National Guard for in emergency services. And let me point out, Portland is not facing an emergency. Memphis was not facing an emergency. Chicago, should the president choose to put troops there, is not facing an emergency. Certainly not an emergency that requires national action. This is an extension of presidential power, which all of us should find extremely disturbing. I've pointed out in the past that if the president is allowed to get away with this, all bets are off. The power of the presidency is considerable, but there is supposed to be a check and a balance on the power of the president. And may I point out that from the Republicans, there is a deafening silence. From the Democrats, there is deep concern. The question of a free press is also here at stake. When you have a president going after columnists, going after newspapers, going after news sources, when you have suits taking place against major networks, CBS, ABC, NBC, when attacks are constant on those news sources like CNN and MSNBC, which the president opposes, there is something very wrong. And may I suggest to you, it is a scattergun approach. It is an attempt by the president to put so many things out that we can't respond to any of them because it's just too much. It's overwhelming. I would also suggest to you that this coming week will be decisive because the Supreme Court reconvenes. What will the Supreme Court do? Will it continue to support the president, or will it stand up for the rights of states? There are now lawsuits, particularly from Oregon, opposing what the president is doing. Ultimately, I believe those cases will be heard before the United States Supreme Court. And what does it mean? What does it all mean? I'm going to suggest something to you that I regret more than I can say. We have a president who is out of control. We have a president who is lawless. We have a president who is abusing power. And traditionally, when you have a president who abuses power, Congress can act. Congress has acted, rightly or wrongly, against Richard Nixon, against Bill Clinton. Congress has defined, even in the case of Donald Trump on 2 occasions, what it would define as abuse of power. And yet, it would seem that there is no check on the presidency, no check on this president. It pains me to have to say this. I want to turn for a moment to foreign affairs, because the president, when it comes to foreign policy, is king. In Ukraine, devastating attacks by Russia on Kiev. And we are told that the president is now considering making Tomahawk missiles available to the Ukrainians in their own defense. And in the Middle East, today, the president will meet with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, in order to try to come up with a plan which will reduce the violence in Gaza and perhaps set the Middle East on a course of peace. Well, of course, that really is not possible. The gaps that exist in the Middle East are so vast, as is the case in Ukraine, that coming up with a workable peace plan seems to me to be virtually impossible. What we do know is that now, at this very moment, the president is engaged in a variety of actions because he is the president of the United States. Those of you who have listened to me over the years know that I've often said who is president matters. It has never mattered more than it matters today. If we have a president, unrestrained, going after retribution, essentially conducting a lawless campaign on so many different levels, and yet we have to rely on the president's judgment when it comes to foreign policy, because there is no check on a president when it comes to foreign policy. These issues are paramount in our concerns at this moment. As somebody who has lectured on the American presidency, studied the American presidency, written about the American presidency, may I express this view. I have never been more concerned about abuse of power. I have never been more concerned about a president who I view as lawless. I have never been more concerned about a president who openly announces that he is on a campaign of retribution. We should all be concerned about that because, well, you can use the term unbalanced. You can use it in terms of Donald Trump's actions. You can use it in terms of our constitutional checks and balances system. And you can use it, ladies and gentlemen, the concern we all have for the future of our country. My intention today is not to be extreme in my statements, but in a normal time, Donald Trump, were this a normal time, would be subject not only to impeachment, but I believe conviction by the United States Senate if, in fact, we had a balanced government. The abuses of power are manifest, and we as an American people, even if the Republicans won't act, we need to be aware. We need to sound the warning. We need to be completely honest with the American people. And that is what I'm doing. Now, some of you will decide to turn my podcast off. You'll say, John, you've gone overboard, too far. I would suggest quite the contrary. I have been restrained in my comments, but let the record be clear. A president wielding the powers of the presidency for the purpose of retribution is someone to be feared. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. Make sure to follow along. Let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. And of course, you can share an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which is, of course, our goal. My special appreciation to all of you who comment on LinkedIn, Facebook, and of course, the direct emails which I receive. And to Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of this podcast, Thanks, Gogo. This is John Rothman, and you are listening to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I'll be back tomorrow, and believe me, when I say this, I can hardly wait.